Excellent. Welcome to the October 17th Budget and Facilities Committee meeting. Thank you for everyone making it out here on a gloomy and Monday morning, all our favorite things together. We have a jam-packed agenda today, and we have a hard stop at 10:30. At 10:20, I'd like to open up to community comments. So without further ado, we're going to start with our first topic, which is the demographer estimate and report. If any of you were tuned in last time, we asked as a committee and as a board to look into the last demographer report, which was issued in 2014, and update on what it would be if we wanted to do a demographer report coming for this year and looking forward for whatever time period the demographer determines. And I think, Ms. O'Hara, you've looked into that, you can apprise us?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, thank you. So I did look at the report from 2014, and I did contact that gentleman as well. That cost for that report would be $12,500. I did also reach out to BOCES, and I believe in front of you, you do have a copy of the BOCES proposal. That came to about $16,000.
15,900.
Correct, 15,900. With the BOCES demography study, it's actually eatable, and we receive about 52.1% back from those services. Several schools surrounding us use this BOCES study. I think it's very worthwhile because with trends the way that they are and enrollment, if we're trying to project out 5 years, our budget and what things like that, I think the trends of our enrollment is very important because it also influences your foundation and how much you would be receiving. And, I think it's a very worthwhile study to have done.
Okay, wonderful. I appreciate that information. I do have a quick question. The report that was conducted in 2014 only spanned 5 years, right? Or no, it did span 10 years. Never mind, it spanned 10 years, and that is customary. It's a 10-year projection report. I think Ms. Gilliard for joining us. Sorry, we have a tight window, so they all do 10-year reports as far as that's concerned. Just to let Ms. Gilliard know, Ms. O'Hara just apprised us that she looked into the other gentleman who conducted the report back in 2014, and he is offering his services at a rate of $12,500 versus the BOCES report at $15,900, but that 52.1% of that is aidable back to us. So there is a significant difference then in that price.
On only one of them.
Only one of them is aidable, and they are both a 10-year projection. They probably are very apples to apples in your
Pretty
estimation.
much, the BOCES just seemed much more comprehensive.
It seemed very comprehensive. I know I'm gonna ask some of the questions that came from the other board members that are not on the committee when they first saw the 2014 report. The one question that was asked was, how do the results of the demography report compare to actual enrollment numbers? I don't know if anyone went back and looked at it. I did go just pull up from New York State Ed and compare. I can tell you it was pretty spot on. So for example, in 2009 to 2010, we had 4974 and the report predicted 4974. Where we were off is in the year 2012 and 2013. The report predicted 5,090 and we had 5,091. 2013, 2014, 5,138 was the prediction of the report. We had 5,141.
And 2020 was off, right?
And 2020 was not off by much, but it was off. 2019-20, it was 5435. It was the projection, and we had 5364. In every instance, it was no more than like 70 was the number that it was off by as far as pupil enrollment. So it really was pretty accurate in its estimation. The benefit also is that this demographic report we were working with prior to, it did stop at 2020, so it doesn't take into account that weird influx that we may have experienced during COVID, right? When who knows what those numbers would have been predicted at and how it was handled. So I just wanted to lend that insight when looking at it, just because it's kind of helpful to know how accurate or inaccurate something is when we're looking at it. And again, that was the gentleman that did the 2014 report. Yes. I would just want to ask from the committee, we were hoping to make a recommendation to the board on the value of having such a demography report. I want to have the other committee members have the opportunity to ask a question about it so that we can then make an informed recommendation and then also hear from other staff members as well.
Can I ask a question? I don't remember if this was done the last time, I don't know if you have this, but is there a way that we could request that if we do a demography report, we can also ask for where the actual move-in areas are by foot school? Because I think that was one of the things we've been talking about is is there an influx of families moving to Flower Hill, for instance? I don't know, I'm making up, but geographic area, I think if it's possible, I think that also will help us in our planning, because as we have found of late, we seem to find an influx in a neighborhood or in a school, and we have to make some last minute adjustments. So if there's a way for now again, I don't know how, but
The last report, I didn't see, it broke it down a little bit by neighborhood,
It
but
did.
mostly it broke it down by grade.
By grade.
It really, so I think to ask the questions,
I
it's
think
gonna
if
go
we
into that
could
detail.
possibly ask for any of that information, because they do talk to real estate agents, and they do talk to like the town planning board, so I'm interested to see if there's a way for us to get that kind of information. I personally think this is a valuable, program, thing to go into again. If BOCES is favorable, then I think we should go with the BOCES option. If there is no real difference in the way that we work, I mean, this other gentleman that did it in 2014 was very spot on. I will say that we have used that demographic study and we've used that information in the past as to talk about the difference between Port Washington when we've talked about foundation aid and when we've talked about the aid that we get from the state, we've used that information. I personally have gone and spoken to state senators and assembly people just based on that. So I do think it's a valuable investment, and I would support whatever you say, Kathy. If you think we should go with BOCES, I would support that.
Great. Ms. Gilliard?
Can you just remind me, you said it's about 50% annual?
52.1.
Okay.
Just
To be
about
exact,
50.
ballpark 50% aidable, so like maybe a $7,000 cost or so.
Correct.
So I guess that's not a huge amount of money, but it is money, and we never have enough money. And from what you just said, we're really accurate anyway. So I guess my question was really for Dr. Shields.
The numbers I pulled were from New York State Ed as we report them as they
Right.
happen. So this is a prediction, right, in advance. He predicted in advance he was spot on. Okay,
No,
great.
I
Okay.
understand, but so I guess my question is really for Dr. Shields, who is in the business of giving us our projected K enrollment every year. And I'm wondering, where are you looking and how do you figure that out? And is this something that we're doing already internally? You know, because $7,000 in the scheme of our budget, not that much money, but we could spend it on something else if we're gonna come up with a projection that's within a couple pupils anyway of what we already think is happening.
So
I
the
had-
Dr.
I
Shields
had the
does it
same
1 year in
question.
advance, not 10 years. in
I have her
advance.
same question also, so from that standpoint, yes, I do have your same question.
So that's
Well, let me just be clear, it's a team approach, and I get those numbers from the business office,
Jessica.
from Jessica Macker. From Jessica Macker provides them to us, and I then share them out to the principals, and we come up with class size predictions for the upcoming year.
And Jessica, where do you get that
And that's, yes,
So I do calculations based on birth rates and past history, like averaging the past 5 years or so and getting like a percentage to increase. So,
But you do just kindergarten?
no, I do everything. But first I start with kindergarten and I move up everybody and based on like trends.
So would this be valuable? Have you used the old demographers?
I didn't see the old demographic report, so I haven't been using it since I've been here 6 years.
Would this be helpful to you, I guess, in your work that
I
you're
mean, it'd be
doing?
helpful to see how, it is compared to everybody.
What you predict,
Right,
yes. Okay. Dr. Hines, I didn't get something.
So one of the questions I had, and I asked some of my colleagues, and Kathy and I spoke offline last week, is how often do school districts conduct, this sort of thing? And I think some go to the extreme, I won't name a school district where it's like every year, or maybe every other year, where they conduct something like this, or every 5 to 7 years. And that's something in I guess, the previous districts I've been in, I've never been affiliated with conducting demographic analysis, enrollment analysis. So I didn't really bring that much to the table except for learning from what Kathy knew about it before. So the last time this was done was how many years ago?
2014, so 8 years ago.
8 years ago. And when I asked my colleagues if they felt like it was worthwhile, the 3 or 4 that responded said it was. Not to the extreme where it was like, again, every year, every other year, but it sounds like we are in that sweet spot for when it should take place. And then the question becomes, what will we do with it? Really, that's the
Well, I think that's also Rachel's question to some degree, but I think it's also Emily's, because you could look at it and say, if we have a 10-year projected report, and if it looks like in 10 years, our enrollment is going to spike, or it's going to dramatically decrease, we as a school district, both from a funding standpoint and from a building standpoint, need to be prepared for all of that and what we need to do. So
I agree.
while on an annual basis, we have Jessica Mack, who seems to be providing very spot on also. You should really look into doing this somewhere else too, right? While you work here, of course, yes. On the side, yes. But no, if we have that benefit from an annual basis, if we have this to look at and to use for oversight and looking forward and projecting out, which is one of our goals that we've been saying as a board, we want a forecasting, we don't want to be living on this year-to-year basis, then it may be beneficial if we're going to use it. If it gets put in the drawer and no one looks at it, then it's not going to be.
We've also discussed here doing a 5-year projection.
Correct.
Budget forecasting. So Jessica and I have started looking at things, but this would be something that each year we could look at. We could compare it to Jessica's reports and look at how does it affect foundation aid, how does it affect the budget overall, do we need to be adding, for supplies, for different contractual.
I have 2 more questions.
Go right ahead.
Who did our previous demographic report?
Russ, Eva,
So do we know, is there any information available about how accurate Western Suffolk BOCES tends to be with the demographic report? Because it seems to me that even though there's a lot of quantitative analysis here, it's mushing it all together in a very qualitative way.
yeah, so I put out to my quadrant all of the schools around here, and every single one of them, except for Syosset, they used a different company that never responded to me. But so, I think it was like 10 schools used BOCES, and they said they're terrific, and they're really good to work with, and they just said how valuable the report was. So as far as accuracy, they didn't speak to that.
Okay, and one other question, I'm looking at the, what the study includes, it's birth records, it's census data, new resident surveys, non-public school enrollment trends, historical trends. The one that really jumps out to me though is information from town planning and building officials and local developers on proposed new housing developments. So the question I'd like to raise for the committee is, we do have one proposed new housing development on West Shore Road that's a hot topic right now, and it's potentially a lot of additional housing. Otherwise, in Port Washington, there's not a lot of empty lands, right? So we don't usually have to worry that somebody's gonna build like a giant new cul-de-sac. It's not a thing that we even have room for. Does it
There's
make
actually a lot of new
sense?
construction out there.
Well, there is a lot of new construction, but I'm saying there's not empty land. Nobody's coming in buying 10 acres of empty land and putting 25 houses on it because that land doesn't exist in Port Washington. Whereas this one new housing project is potentially a lot of new housing. Does it make sense if we think that we should do this to wait a year and see what happens with this West Shore Road project? Or does that not impact it enough? Should we
I
proceed?
think what some districts see is people are empty nesting and they'll sell their houses, so it's not generally new construction, they'll have younger families move in. So I think a report like this would show the demographics of the people physically living here now. So
I
they
think
might be
that's-
able to project it. Some of those people may actually move into that project and then that creates more. I think it's valuable to do it now.
Okay.
But just
So I
because
think what
we're
I hear you
changing our
saying is like, the
forecast,
housing development is like a separate line item on this. I get the whole empty nester, but you're saying you think they can take into account
yes.
that kind of movement and we can go ahead and just
Based on
proceed.
the number of units that they're projecting there. We did have a discussion, Dr. Hines and Dr. Shields, with some construction people, and they told us like how many units would be and what they're projecting. Of course, they say it's not going to be very.
I mean, the
It's
developer's
not too much,
projection
but-
is probably a lot less accurate than whatever
Yes, yeah.
BOCES is.
That's why I think now it would be beneficial.
Okay,
Any more questions, Rachel?
No,
Ms.
I'm good.
Miller, Ms. Bates?
I'm good, thank you.
Dr. Hines, you gave your projection of, the research that you did. Do you have a strong feeling one way or another way as far as the direction?
So if you asked me about 5-6 days ago, I was, either or, but after speaking with my colleagues and definitely with Kathy, I see how there's a good benefit.
And you see that we would be implementing them. Kathy said she'll be implementing, we could use them also in your office, Dr. Shields as well, right? So, all right. That being said, so Ms. Bates, you said you were in support and the BOCES, it seems like is what the recommendation is. So, you're supporting it. Ms. Gilliar, do you have a support or either way?
I support it. It sounds to me like Mr. Howard in our business office, Dr. Shields, Dr. Hines thinks this is valuable. It's a reasonable sum of money once we get past the non-equal, and so if we think that it's something that's important to do, then we should do it. And I think we need to, when we have it, we potentially have a huge impact on planning. We do have an empty piece of land that we could do something with if we know that enrollment is gonna change. So I think that it's valuable to know in advance. You can't build a building in 6 months.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I also am in support with the recommendation and to go with the BOCES, you're also in support of the BOCES one, the BOCES
Yes.
demography report. So that's the recommendation that we as a committee will make at the board meeting. Everyone's in agreement?
Yes.
Excellent, wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Our next item is the New York Liquid Asset Fund, and I'm gonna let you go through and explain that. So, yes.
So this is a fund that was formed by school business officials. What it is it pools municipalities' funds so that we can actually receive better rates. It's the benefit to this as opposed to investing in these things yourself as a district. Brokerage fees are much lower because NILAC actually has a third-party PMA, and they actually do the advising and the investing. And it's very liquid. If you have your money in the funds and you know that the next day you want to take it out and perhaps put it in to a money market, which right now they're not doing as well as this fund is, you can move it within a day. You can actually have the funds there liquid. So that's the major benefit. We wouldn't be taking all of our funds out of the current bank that we have. We have our funds at JP Morgan. This is just another option so that when the rates here are much better, we can move the money into it. Quite a few school districts use NILAC. Some also use NICLAS, which is another type of an investment pool. So I was requesting if the board would approve the allowing of the funds to actually be put in the fund.
Can you specify again the dollar amount you're looking at? Do you have what the amount that you would like to deposit?
Just
in
a creation.
Just
Just to allow us to
to
put
create
funds
it, or
into
to put
it,
funds
yeah.
into it, okay.
And really the treasurer, she can move funds to wherever it's making the most money.
Okay.
So, we could have as little as like $1,000 in it, but we were thinking of moving our restricted reserves into this because we really don't do much with the funds.
Okay. Before we go into the questions from the committee, we also had a question that came up when this was first presented. And the question is why wouldn't we invest directly in short-term US treasuries, which offer a similar return and are backed by the credit of the US government? Do you
Right,
have?
and I did speak with the gentleman from Monlac, and he said it's really the brokerage fees, and the T-bills are not very liquid, like you would put it in there. You're not gonna get the same rate of return because you could get your funds out, but you wouldn't get like the 6-month rate or the 3-month rate, because you removed it too soon.
Okay.
So in case you have a pool, so it's everybody's funds are in there. So if you're taking it out, you still got it for those 2 or 4 days.
Mhm.
So, and the funds we're looking to invest here, you're not going to really use them, so I guess you could put them in the T-bills, but you have higher brokerage fees. It's not being shared with all of these other districts. And also, they're doing the advising, so if they see there's a better investment than investment, they'll let you know. Where if you're putting it in the T-bills, we don't have the specialties.
Right. Okay. Ms. Gilliard, we'll start with you. Do you have any questions? No?
I don't, it sounds like a logical move, and I mean, I think that the trend since you arrived with Sahara is that you make these recommendations that are, this gives us other really good options, and I'm never opposed to other really good options, right? I think it sounds good.
Excellent. Ms. Bates?
I agree.
I also agree. Well done. So the community will be recommending that the creation of this account and moving forward with it is going to be recommended from us. As something that we support, right?
And to you, just so I don't, when you give your report to the general board,
Mhm.
and just add that explanation.
But yeah,
Only because it
Yeah.
will come up.
And I think
you can also fill in also, I also notify you first too. Okay. Okay, great. Well, next we're on to our facility session, and I want to thank everyone for attending from that. Brian, are you giving the main presentation today? All right, and we're also doing our building conditions survey, or having a discussion about it as well. Okay, wonderful. And John is here today also, or not John, sorry. Mr. Justin, sorry. Justin is here also to help fill in where needed. I really appreciate you attending as well as our architect. And so we'll turn it over to you. I just want to make it clear for those on the live stream, we do have a presentation we're looking at on a screen. Unfortunately, we cannot turn the camera to that. We will be uploading the hard copy version of this report onto the board docs on this agenda item. So if you want to go back and reference it, you can. And with that, Brian, you give it to you.
Sure. Thank you. So golden rule of sales is 14 slides, and Ms. O'Hara's let me know that I doubled that. But I'm a fast talker.
It started with like 49 or
54, we really cut it
My
down.
God.
We tried to answer all the questions on the outline, so it's a lot of information, but I will talk fast, but please stop me and ask questions. And this definitely is a team effort. Ms. O'Hara, some of the slides will refer to her, and Justin, obviously, as a construction manager, helped with the whole bond presentations. Some of them are just pictures, so we should be able to move pretty quick. Review of community tours and facility needs. So this is our annual facility tours in Fort Washington. You invite the community to join as well. They are required by NYSED. They were completed in September. We reviewed all the summer work, custodial, maintenance, and obviously the bond work. And all the work was in line and on schedule with our bond and our 5-year plan. One of the common themes we noticed at every building was we did get requests for additional air conditioned spaces at every building, and from every bargaining group. PowerPoint of the summer project was provided, and we're making that available on the website as well. This is just a quick review of our 5-year plan. So 21-22 Salem and Trevor roofs, that work is underway and substantially complete. Next year, we have in development roofing projects at Weber, Manor Haven, and Daly. And then it continues on in 23-24 with Daly and another area of Salem. And then 24-25 and 25-26 is really one project split into two to do the majority of Shriver's roof. Building Condition Survey, also known as the BCS, it's due in 2023. So we just got notified by our architect. It is mandated by SED that it's done by an architect. Typically, it's every 5 years, so we would have been due in 2020. But NICE decided to do it cyclical, where every 20% of each district would do it annually, so that not all the projects and all the work was hitting the street at the same time. We're in the 2023 year. Our last BCS was done in 2015. SED provides the scope of inspections, so they do delineate what the architect is supposed to look at. That can vary from year to year. It's usually pretty standard, but every year they'll give us one nuance or something in particular to look at. This year they've highlighted SJ joist is something they want the architects to pay particular attention to. The price of that is 5 cents per square foot. This is our bond update. This is our most recent one, 2023. And this is just going to review some of our completed work at Trevor High School. We have $15.9 million worth of work, including our science room, auditorium, girls' locker rooms, 2 new turf multi-sport athletic fields, windows, security vestibule, existing cafeteria and serving line, cafeteria addition, main entrance reconstruction, and the technology addition. Just a couple of pictures of some of the work that's been completed. Again, moving on to Weber, this is $19.5 million worth of work. These are the completed projects: science rooms, the auditorium, the locker room, the music suite, parking lot, security vestibule, Whitley Field, the press box, the cupola, and the window replacement. And again, just some pictures of some of the completed work. At Daly, the completed work is the cafeteria renovation, the cafeteria AC, for a total cost of $497,000. And in progress, we have our new 6-classroom pre-K center, main office and nurse's office, and a STEAM classroom. Phase 1 completion is projected for February of 2023, and occupancy is expected to be in September of 2023. Renovation of the existing main office, the nurse's office, into some classrooms and some small group space, and also some of the site work is Phase 2, and that's scheduled to take place this summer with a completed date of September of 2023. And that project is $8.6 million. Manor Haven, completed projects include new classroom addition, including the multipurpose and steam room, some roof work, and the security vestibules, with a total cost of $5.1 million. In progress is the cafeteria AC, total cost of $388,000, and the anticipated completion.
It's a question mark.
The question mark is because certain components of mechanical equipment lead times are getting out of control. We're getting reports of 36 to 40 weeks. We have our kickoff meeting hopefully the next week or so that's why the question mark's there. It's a very fluid situation with mechanical and electrical components right now.
That's great. Can I just interrupt for
Yes,
one
ma'am.
more second? I just want to say out loud, this is so far fantastic. You, while not highlighting air conditioning in some of these new areas, in any new area that we are constructing, we are adding air conditioning in those areas. So since air conditioning is such a hot topic, I just thought I would point out that any new addition that you are showing already has air conditioning included in there. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Complete at Guggenheim, new classroom addition, including the multipurpose and steam room, security vestibule, ceilings, cafeteria AC, and main office bathroom renovations, total cost of $7.2. Sousa completed projects include the security vestibule, the ceilings, for a total cost of $604,000. And in progress at Sousa is the addition, the auditorium renovation, exterior doors, fresh air and relief air, electrical distribution panels, total cost. Auditorium AC with a total cost of $4.1 million.
And, I'm sorry, and the addition for Sousa is their steam room, their steam room, correct? Is that
The
addition?
elevator,
The elevator as well?
the steam room.
It's an
Okay.
elevator, steam room, and the second floor elevator lobby.
Right, okay, thank you.
At South Salem, the security vestibule and the parking lot project are completed with a total cost of $323,000. In progress is the cafeteria AC. And again, the anticipated completion, you'll see that question mark, the global supply chain is really holding us. Remaining projects include the addition and the HVAC with a $1.8 million budget. This one I'll turn over to Ms. O'Hara. This is just one of the things we were asked to review is the 2 properties. So we have the Guggenheim Meadow. I know we're trying to get away from indicating it as a preserve, and the Middle Neck Road property.
Can I just stop you before we get to that part? Can I just ask, because we have been asked by community members, and even some board members have asked about the bond update and what we have done, if there's a way that you could just portion out that part of at least your presentation and add that to, were you gonna suggest that?
No, I was gonna suggest something else, but go ahead.
But I think we need
I
to.
think
add that.
on the webpage, we're gonna
Yeah,
develop the
under, like-
facilities page, and we're gonna do bond updates,
Right, that
we'll
would
do
be
that
great.
summer project.
Thank you, because I think it's important that people understand, what we've done so far. Okay, so, yeah.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
So I don't know, again, we always talk about our taxpayers are not only those that have children sent, that send children to schools, but also the people in our community. We do send out a quarterly newsletter of sorts. It might be helpful in our most recent, since Brian has done such a nice job outlining this in a concise way, if maybe that update can be addressed there, because I know that goes out to the entire Port Washington community, so that they could have it, and you could put for more information, your updates, go to our updated facilities, location on our website. I'm just throwing it out there, if people disagree, these are just my thoughts as a.
idea, you could do just completed work and, how much and for updates go here, like you could just make it a bullet.
Of course, yeah, but
Bond, yeah, we've done in the past bond updates in the newsletter.
right. So I don't know, Ms. Giller, you have any opinions on that? You think, okay?
I'm good.
All right, excellent, thank you, I'm sorry.
Sure, so, I know we have as an agenda item, the Guggenheim Meadow, as well as the Middle Neck Road. I have reached out to our attorney. He referred me to another gentleman who's a, realtor attorney. And he contacted a title agency to actually take an in-depth look at the property on Middle Neck Road as well as the meadow. He said it's much more complicated than they initially thought. The property on Middle Neck Road was gifted to the school by the United States Navy. Yes, quite a while ago. I think like in 19, maybe.
It's like after the war.
Yes, and it used to be used as a watch area.
And World War II, the war, not any of the ones that came after that, right?
So there are stipulations in there, I think, that the United States has the ultimate authority over that property if they ever did need to
Go back to
go
what?
back. Yeah, so he's trying to look at that, and he didn't want to come and speak before they have all of the information, and as well as the Guggenheim Meadow. That was, I believe, in 1961, that was given to the district. And he's not sure if it has like different restrictions, like what it could be used for, so they wanted to look at it before speaking.
So maybe we're moving that to our December meeting as an agenda item for further updates.
Yeah, he was hopeful to have the information like by the end of this week or next week.
Right.
But I said we won't have nothing.
So does that mean, can I ask a question about that? So what about the fact that we have listed it for sale? So what do has it been shown?
It has not been shown yet. We were trying to work to actually get it staked so that they could take drone pictures, but it was like $9,000 to have a surveyor just do that, and I didn't think it was worthwhile. So the agent said they were able to get an aerial view of it.
And what about the private interest that we had gotten? There was private, right?
Yes, I did meet with that person, but I haven't heard back from them.
So is there a question though on whether we're allowed to sell this property then? Is that
Well,
part of this?
the realtors did a brief title search, and they shared all that information with our attorneys too. It didn't say that we couldn't sell it, but that's why he's taking a
Deeper dive into it.
To the
Okay.
actual.
Sorry.
No, go ahead,
So, was this triggered by additional questions that you have? I'm just surprised because we've discussed this property a lot over the last 6 years and we've never had any hints that we have a problem with alienability
It
or.
was actually the realtors that we signed with, they're the ones who brought it up, because they were doing a search through the town records, and it's on like microfiche. And that's what they had, and that's what we shared with our attorneys, because they said, we want you to have your people look at it also. They just didn't want any surprises coming.
Is it possible for you to send to the board what they found? I'm assuming you have like a picture of the microfiche.
I have,
I'm just
it's very
curious.
difficult to read, but I
I'm
can
sure.
definitely send it to you.
Because my understanding, which I'm sure was based on attorney advice before, and Emily was sitting there with me for whatever conversations we had, was the issue was more what could be done with it if we sold it by the purchasing person,
Yes,
because
like
then
it
there would
couldn't
be
be
normal
subdivided,
zoning
right.
restrictions on it. Whereas a school district had pretty open use of the property and obviously wouldn't have to use it for residential use.
Yes, I think the
I'm
question
not
that is coming up now from what I'm understanding is so the school district could do whatever, we still can, I believe, do whatever we want with it. So we're not bound by the zoning. So if the school district wanted to break it up into 1 acre plots and do, playground for 5 schools, theoretically, right? We could do whatever we wanted. However, I think the question that's coming up is if we were to sell it and it's no longer school district, the person who buys it, are they now bound by the Navy coming in and saying there's gonna be a
I'm
war?
hearing two things,
Yeah.
right? Because if the Navy has the right to come back to it, that would be for us too.
Yeah, I
Yes,
know.
Although I
would
don't
for
know
us
what they would
too,
do with our new STEM center.
Yes, yes. They would just put a lookout on the roof.
They would just
On the
add
roof,
somebody
yes.
on the roof. I mean, like, yeah.
Yes, but it doesn't make it as attractive if you're trying to sell necessarily if you don't have the clear title, right? Or not, it's not that it's not clear, but if you don't have these questions answered in that regard.
So we'll move this to
To December.
Yeah.
And if you could send us that, I'd love to see it. Thank you.
Even the Guggenheim title was kind of interesting to look at also, if you'd like to see it. It has the signature of one of the Guggenheims, I guess whoever was the executive of the Steve, there was some Steve, right, too.
Because that's the Sands Point Preserve across the street.
Yeah.
And this is really the same piece of property.
It's interesting. Well, thank you.
Next, we were asked to review potential revenue sources, including an EPC and solar. So I wanted to break this up into 2 parts. We have a current EPC, so the district contracted with Johnson Controls through an 18-year energy performance contract dated in 2014, and then the contract was amended July 5th of 2017. There's an 18-year performance period, which is a guarantee that you're going to save energy between August 2019 and it'll end in July of 2037. It's important to know where we are because that would impact what we can do going forward. And we have talked about energy efficiency is constantly adapting and really rapidly changing. So it doesn't mean just because you did one, you can't do more or technology hasn't changed. We talked about bulb replacement versus fixture replacement. So there's still a lot of opportunity for us. But this was a project that was projected to save the district $7.7 million throughout the term of an 18-year period. The primary goals of this project were reduce utility usage, deferred capital, and ongoing maintenance costs as well. And over here to the right, you'll see a list of all the projects that they have included.
And those projects are all completed at this point, or they're in the
Yes,
process of?
these are all projects that were done.
That were done, okay.
So the way we asked actually about the projections, again, earlier about the demographer, can I ask, are there projections on target?
Glad you asked.
Good.
So these were the projections that were provided to us. And then obviously there's only 3 years of measurable data. You can see the first year is always an anomaly because rebates do get factored in. So that's why you'll see that number in parentheses with the variance. You will still see a variance. Unfortunately, their projections on utility costs come into play. If this was a longer slide, some of the slides that Mr. O'Hara maybe cut out would have shown you the difference between utility rate and usage versus cost. And then also our energy cost is constantly going up. So we're adding air conditioning, we're adding additions, we're adding things. So there's a lot of variables in this, but this is measurable data. And this does project out all the way to 2037, and you'll see that we are on target with our achieved cost avoidance and our guaranteed O&M cost avoidance. This is just another quick slide that they showed us. Not only is an EPC cost savings, but it's also environmentally friendly, and these are some of the data that they use to measure that we've passenger vehicles driven has been reduced by 305. The carbon sequestered is the same that it would take to grow 23,000 seedlings, and we removed 1,417 metric ton of CO2 from the decarbonization impact. What is an energy performance contract? Again, I'll go very quickly, but just for everybody understanding that we're on the same page and what we're looking to do going forward would be a partnership between the district and an energy savings company. There's no increase to the budget or out-of-pocket layouts, and it helps us address some of our building improvements and also go green. This is a comparison between the traditional capital project and a energy performance project. So zero taxpayer impact, there's no out-of-pocket costs, there's no change orders, guaranteed energy savings, it's exempt from the WICS law, it's typically, it includes the professional services, the construction management, etc. Project criteria, so that it has to be self-funding. This is if the project doesn't meet this criteria, it can't move forward as an EPC. And the payback is shorter than the expected lifespan of the items being installed. So you can't put on a product that has a lifespan shorter than 18 years. It has to have a less than 18-year simple payback, can be financed for up to 15 years, and the energy savings must also, all the projects must have an energy saving. It can't just be cost savings. So sometimes there'll be a blurred line, and that will delay. Water savings cannot be included. I think that's being addressed now because obviously with the year we had, we've heard a lot of discussions at SCP that they're reconsidering water savings. Phases of an energy performance contract, so procurement and selection. So we go out for an RFP, we do our budgetary pricing, very similar to how we structured our bond. We review our options, investment grade audit. So this is when we would go out and finance that project, construction, implementation, and then an energy savings and verification. And that's where those first 3 slides came from with Johnson Controls. That's in the phase that they're in now. Is not only do they do the project, but they continue to monitor it throughout the 18 years. Strategies and incentives, reduce energy use, obviously, increase comfort. So we talked a lot about that already. Improve lighting, which I know we highlighted on our facility tours, and then obviously HVAC. Produce less than the utility company, so that goes back to solar. We're able to generate some of that energy on site. Obviously, there's a savings. And then maintenance and monitoring savings. So a lot of the new equipment, a lot of the new technology is we're able to fine tune stuff, and we're able to really control our usage and achieve greater savings. And then rebates, this is a very fluid topic, but there's a lot of rebates each year. And NYSERDA does a lot of stuff upstate, and we're hearing that they're hopefully going to be coming downstate sooner than later, because that really makes it more incentivized upstate. Potential upgrades include lighting, electrical, building envelope improvements, automation. Again, that's one of the ones we talked about where we can really fine tune our use and our temperature control, lighting control. Boiler burner and chiller upgrades, which is typically work we have to do cyclically anyway. So if we can do it through this project, it saves on both sides. HVAC upgrades, IT upgrades, or just integration. A lot of times, again, this technology is evolving. Water conservation, solar energy, and cogeneration.
I'm sorry. Oh, and I don't know if you're gonna get to this. So that list, how does it compare to what we have negotiated under our energy performance contract with Johnson & Johnson? Are there items that we have not negotiated in there? Okay.
Yeah, there's definitely items on there that weren't addressed at all, and maybe they weren't applicable at that time, but there's definitely open items on there, or just the change in technology and the change in equipment has already in those 3 short years advanced that there's further advantages that we can potentially take place of. Measuring the savings, so again, this goes back to those that graph I showed you, and that is part of the project. And this is just a sample project, scope of work, lighting, interior, exterior, controls, cogeneration, pump controls, rooftop units. So those are ones that, again, typically come in a later phase, which may not have been caught up in the first energy performance contract. If the project was $5.9 million, we had 1.5 in capital relief. Guaranteed savings of $310,000. It would provide a net positive cash flow of $2.3 million over the life of the project. Anticipated utility increases. This was my hardest slide, so I definitely saved it for last. I got 100 different answers from 100 different people. National Grid has committed to a 2% delivery increase. They're actually having a meeting today to talk about the supply increase that they project out, that they provide to customers. I used CenterPoint Energy, which is a conglomerate energy company, and these are the only figures they had. We were trying to get more of a 3-year projection, but it's just such a volatile environment right now that we really couldn't get anybody to go on record with anything outside of these.
And what did we project in our budget when we were budgeting for this year as far as, do you remember that? Or
Let's see, we did like 8%.
8%? Okay, so that's actually really pretty much within line. I mean, you're somewhere in that range, so
Yeah.
that's what,
Could you go back to that, like 6 to 12%, it seems like a huge
yes.
range.
John, for
Well,
national grid.
Natural gas,
That was for natural gas.
national, or grid was 2%,
6 to 12%.
was national gas.
No, National Grid is saying they're absolutely going to reduce,
Increased by
Increased by
2%,
2%.
6% over 3 years, right?
I know
2% is
natural
the
gas
delivery increase, so the last 3 years, they went up 6% on delivery, 2%, I think it was actually 2.5, 1.5, 1.5. But that was the only number that National Grid is committed to. Again, over CenterPoint Energy is saying that you should be prepared to expect 6 to 12%. We've seen doomsday projections out there, we've seen 35% energy
Right.
increases. It's, that's why I don't think we could really give you any hard numbers. Last year, both National Grid and PSE&G provided budgetary numbers in November, and they revised them in February. They did go up, but I think they went from 6% to 8%. But definitely a concerning trend.
Of course.
Yes, that's true. Also, we were kind of talking about, like, are there grants out there or other revenues? I was up in Albany last week, and they were talking about NYSERDA as well, working with us to try to figure out things with the buses, the electric buses. And one of the things I brought up, which I think would be good for our legislative task force, a lot of the way they allocate these grants and funding is based on the wealth of the district, which is very difficult for us because in years past, it might have made sense because you could look at the wealth of the district. Now you have a 2% tax cap, so it doesn't matter if you're wealthy or not, you still need to do this if you like want to do these NYSERDA upgrades or you want to be a greener school. So I think that's something we need to look at, is how do we change that? How do we change the formula for the foundation? Because as far as other grants and stuff, we haven't seen anything. It's really through the NYSERDA effort.
Right. Okay, that's great. I cannot thank you enough, Brian. This was great, fantastic. I know you're gonna have questions. It was great. It was also very concise and user-friendly, so I really appreciate that. Before I go to my questions, okay, I'm flip-flopping you, Chelsea, you can go first and go next.
No, thank you. I just wanted to ask Brian, so I know that we talked about it on our facilities tours, and we did speak about doing more of these contracts, these energy ECPs. So is it your recommendation that we, because I think as a committee, right, we need to ask for his recommendation so that we can go back to the board. I know that you had said it to us on the walks, but I'm asking you formally, you recommend that we do those?
I would recommend we explore options, absolutely. Could be as simple as again, the EPC that you have was updated once, could be an additional phase of that EPC, or explore bringing in a second EPC and running that separate. Yeah, we would want to explore all options and any opportunity to save money.
There's no downside to it?
No.
Thank you. That was my only question.
Okay. Mr. O'Neill?
I mean, I'm in support of it. It's clear to me that you're in support of it, but it seems like some of these things are no-brainers, right?
Yes.
It's good for our pocketbook, it's good for the environment. There's no reason not to do it. So,
I agree also, and I know that we as a board have been approached by at least one company that offers at least some EPC qualities. I know there are others out there that have wanted to present to us. We've talked about if we're interested in moving forward, entertaining a conversation with them, separated apart from a budget and facilities meeting, hosting another conversation where maybe we would want to bring in multiple energy performance groups, including Johnson & Johnson, right? To talk to them to see what they would provide course, in consultation with what you would be looking at as your recommendation of the length of item, or the list of items that we would be eligible for. Is that something that we would want to move forward on? Because I think it's great that we're all sitting here and saying this is a slam dunk. I'd like to put
Yes.
something in action if we think, and bring it to the board and say that this would be something we'd like to look at.
I would 100% agree with that.
I mean, I would defer to
Yeah.
Mr. Graham on like who he thinks we should talk to and what he explored, but I'm totally on board for it.
100%. I don't want to pick anyone that we should be doing, but I just think if we want to do this process and if we want to, hear what it has to entail.
I think I do have one additional question too. We have talked over the years several times about solar power and solar panels on our roofs, and there are various issues about when you can install them and on what kind of roof, and we have massive roof issues here already. But while we're looking at this, I'm wondering if solar panels are part of this anywhere, or is it something that can potentially be included in it? And is it something that we should look at again now that our roofs are in a little bit of a better state?
Sure.
And I know you're bringing fresh eyes to the situation too.
So it's definitely site specific. We definitely wouldn't put solar panels on a leaking roof. I can tell you industry-wide, solar panels are coming off the roofs. They're going more on parking lots, they're going more on fields, and it is sometimes scary to put solar panels in a parking lot, especially we have a lot of new drivers in some of our schools. So a lot of school districts are doing just the perimeter of the parking lots. Again, we're in a good position where, a lot of that solar that went in 5-10 years ago is already outdated, so there's a lot better options. They are floating. If they do go on a roof, it's very simple. Districts that have done, solar projects, they move up there, so they can move it, fix the roof, and slide it right back into place.
So I'm definitely not advocating roof as location. I think that's the
That was the
piece
question,
never
we've
discussed.
only discussed it on.
It would be very site specific. That's something that they would take into account. Do you have alternatives to the roof? Is the roof, we just wouldn't put it on a roof that wasn't rated for.
But to
30
Ms.
years out.
Gillier's question, solar panels and solar power is something that if you're going down this road of an energy performance contract, it's included as part of the
Yeah,
discussion.
they're gonna give us, a menu of options and, from as many phases to as little phases as we want. It's very driver, we're the driver. We can decide which projects to take and not to take.
It would be great to hear from another perspective, because
Yes.
we have had this conversation in the past, so it'd be good to have another set of eyes. look at
And
it.
it may be that things have just simply changed, because I think the recommendation before was they could only be on a new roof.
Right,
Or
right,
maybe
right.
aid was only available if we put them on a new roof. And, even a roof that we were refurbishing as opposed to replacing, we couldn't put them on, but we never discussed putting them anywhere
Well,
else. And it's
can I ask
potentially more savings, and again, better for the environment.
So I would think, and I don't know, but we've never really discussed the solar panels or options at Guggenheim Meadows and the Sands Point Preserve.
Right.
So those are pieces of property that no one uses right now, really. I mean, we do use Guggenheim Meadows, but there's certainly something, so if you could.
Districts have put in solar farms, on vacant properties, and they to a point where they're not
I know
only
you have,
creating
right?
all of their, energy for the district, they've actually created a surplus, and they've impacted the surrounding community. So some districts on Long Island have given a utility rate discount to the surrounding community, because you're not allowed to profit from that.
Right.
So if you're making more energy than you use, as a district, you can't profit it, but you can take that reduction and pass it on to the surrounding community at a reduced rate.
So that would be
Very
interesting.
advantageous, yes, yeah. And I also know some programs, they offer STEAM components as education for your students as well. So there is a curricular aspect that has been provided back. So again, this sounds like something, and to the points that are being brought up, we've really only ever talked about solar panels on roof, never solar in general and where it would be beneficial. So since you seem to be in agreement that this is a direction that the energy performance,
If I could just add,
Yeah.
in my former district, we did an RFP. And you send it out, you could say, we're interested in solar, we're interested, and they'll actually give you'll have like 3 or 4 different perspectives.
yeah, that's what he sounds like he's saying there too. So I guess the question is, what's the best route to take? Should we entertain conversations with some of the vendors that have reached out to us? Is it better to just send an RFP out? What is your experience? What's your recommendation? What's your recommendation for proceeding so that we're actually taking action on this?
you wanna talk to Ms. O'Hara privately.
Okay. You can say I need a few minutes, you're allowed to do that.
I think that we're very interested in exploring our options and providing that information to this committee and to the board
That's
at
great.
large.
So can we put this on as an item for our December meeting, is that we're following up on, and any developments that come in advance of that, or recommendations, will, we can entertain before if we need to? Does that sound like a fair
Yes.
amount of time, and everyone on the committee is good with that as a
And
reasonable?
then I think
If I could
in
just
the meantime, from at least the committee, I think what I'm hearing is like, we are all on board for
Right.
whatever direction, and information that needs to be gathered.
So in terms of follow-up, you're not saying you'd like people to come here and speak with you yet, just kind of put together things we think could be done. If we did go out for a request, we could say to them.
Yes, I think that's what we're hearing also, I think, because we need some time to gather our information and collect ourselves. And then if out of the recommendation after gathering it, the recommendation is we should meet with people, or that might be part of the RFP process also, right? We could make that part of the RFP process. I think that's what we're gonna hear.
Or maybe the two of you think they
Right,
should just
just
meet
do
with
it.
people and let us know.
Right. Again, of course, so I think you're taking this time to work out what works best in order to come back so that we can, move forward in something like this. But in the meanwhile, the recommendation that we'll be bringing to the board is we would like to move forward looking at energy performance contracts and what, savings and facility upgrades and also environmental benefits that it will have for our school district and our community. And that will be our recommendation we'll be bringing at the meeting on the 17th. Everyone sounds like they're in agreement? Great. Okay. With a December follow-up at the budget and facilities meeting on how we're going to make that happen. Okay, great. Look, I'm telling you right now, it's 9:58. I thought we were gonna meet till 10:30. This is just amazing. We can
I
say,
think you owe a thanks to Mr. Graham.
I do hope they actually.
Because you eliminated the
Spoke
50
faster than
slides.
I take notes.
But he also was very concise. You hit all of your points that you need to hit. I also just have to say, we didn't talk about this, but the community tours this year were great. We had community members that did attend on some of them. I don't know if we noticed, we also had a student attend at our One Edge Schreiber, which was wonderful. I've never seen a student attend on a community facility tour as well. So I think it was very insightful for everyone. And I do want to give a shout out again. You did a great job jumping in right away, and really appreciated that the custodial staff and maintenance staff were able to highlight their areas and that they were able to really showcase all the work that they do. That was really appreciated as well. So thank you on that front all around. Does anyone else at the table, did I neglect any questions or any comments or anything? Because if not, I'm gonna turn to community comments or anything. Yeah, okay,
Good.
Wonderful. I introduced it before I turned to community comments. We did have a review of any increased facility costs. I felt that they were any increased costs we kind of discussed in utilities for right now, and you didn't highlight any in your presentation. Were we seeing any that we have to be alerted to as a board?
Have you seen, I have not been looking. Have you seen through the course of the bills and stuff like that?
We actually sent them over to facilities to monitor,
Okay.
so I have to look into that.
Well, I kind of think we've heard.
I think we did. I want to make sure, again, I'm just asking the question. I feel like we covered
I think
everything.
the energy
so-
costs have been discussed, and I think we're hearing also the costs of facilities, maybe through the supply chain,
Yeah,
maybe causing some delay, which causes money type of
Of course.
And it sounds like also like for our end of it, the important part is impacting budgeting. And obviously not yet.
Right. No, exactly.
Well, some of the energy costs have gone up because of the additions also, so
Mhm.
that was taken into account.
budget.
Of course, yes. Wonderful. All right, so now we're gonna open up to community comments at this point, or questions. Ms. Brooks, yes?
Thank you. Okay, so I have to start at the beginning. So thank you for everything, all of our staff at the table, for all of what you've been doing and really keeping tabs on everything. Regarding the demographer's report, so I don't know why the district did the last demographer's report. I can only guess it was in advance of the capital bond and to understand where things needed to be built and extended and so forth to accommodate the school needs and the population needs. Can you, Ms. O'Hara, can you help me understand how the demographer's report would influence foundation aid? What does it add to what we already know about our student population that would influence foundation aid?
So if you are having a decrease in the number of students coming, your foundation aid, you wouldn't be expecting as much, you'd be held harmless. Instead of seeing an increase or a decrease, actually, they would hold the district harmless. But if you're seeing projections that you're going to have several students coming on, like 100 or 200, that will affect your foundation aid. So if you're trying to project out what revenues are coming to the district, that would be very beneficial.
Well, what do districts that don't have demographers, what happens to districts that don't have demographers reports that aren't making these projections? So that's where I'm confused.
I'm not sure I understand the question,
So-
I guess they just wing it.
Yeah, I think this is a
Yeah.
question, Deb, I think this is a question of us being proactive as opposed to being reactive. That's, I think, the bottom line.
I just didn't know if STAD was going to use those
State
demographers.
doesn't use that,
Right.
So here's a report.
we use it.
Right, but when you say it's a projection of foundation aid, so.
I
use
would
it
be
internally.
projecting
use
it
it.
myself.
Okay, I was hearing that it would go, somehow the
No,
state would get this.
No, but
information.
Deb, I think what you also heard is me say that in the past, when I've spoken to our legislators, I've been able to use the fact that Port Washington's numbers are projected to continue to go up. If you remember going back to the 2017 presentation I did, that's what I think maybe you tied in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a reasonable question, right?
Yeah.
She's asking a lawyer's question,
Yeah.
which is, if we get this back and it says our numbers are going down,
Are we
is
shooting ourselves
the
in
state
foot?
getting their hands on this and then telling us, actually, we're gonna give you less money, and this number might be wrong?
They'll hold us harmless,
They hold
which
you
is
harmless.
interesting because they are discussing foundation aid formula and how we can be making changes to that. Because some schools, you have to be careful what you wish for. You know,
Okay.
if you're seeing decrease in enrollment, that could affect your
Which has
revenues.
been one of the conversations we've had in the past.
Yeah, I love the whole harmless, I love hearing that, so yeah, that's my.
The other thing too, I've been asked to project like a 5-year financial projection, so that's why this would be particularly beneficial to me, because I can actually go into the foundation aid and look and see, okay, well, we're having these expenses, but our revenue is also going to increase because based on our enrollment trends. But if I see that things are going down, we can't support increasing the budget. as
I
much as-
understand, and so then, I don't know what to call you, Emily or Ms. Bates, I'll just put Emily, just Ms. Bates seems so strange. So when you were talking about, is there an influx in particular geographic areas, what would be the end goal then? If we found out, let's say that there was more building going on in, I don't know, I'll pick a school, Daly, or whatever, what did you mean when you say if there's what would be the end game of finding out there was an influx in a particular geographic area? What does that look like? What does that look like on the end side? Do you know what I mean?
Are
Like,
you asking me?
yeah, I don't know.
The question, I think, the question that people don't want to hear is if there is a area that is getting an increase and our buildings cannot hold those students, then the big old redistricting word may need to be looked at.
Oh, so
Right.
not building then, not,
No, so I think for us to see, I think it's, we did this many years ago. And it was, we wound up opening Salem for that whole purpose of when we did that. So I think the question that I'm asking is there a time that, based on projections, that we will see the need for us to look at all our buildings and say, okay, which schools have which neighborhoods and can they continue to accommodate this projected influx? That's what I'm asking, is because Deb, that we've been getting back and forth. We've heard some schools are growing much more than other schools. So is it, that's all I'm asking.
Got it,
Maybe
got
it's just data. for that
Again, to be
information.
proactive, not reactive.
okay, because I didn't know if we were looking at maybe additions to a school or I wasn't sure.
Well, I think
Well, maybe
that might be
maybe that
the
is the question.
solution,
Who knows?
but at least we can be proactive
Because
too.
there's always an ebb and flow, right?
Yeah.
Like Daly was enormous when my daughter, and now it's not as enormous. There's another school that's more enormous. Okay, so I'm just trying to understand.
And we have had those moments historically, just for the record, where we dealt with it without redistricting. You know, a few years ago, right before COVID, we had numbers at Manor Haven were too high. And I know Manor Haven families were offered, hey, instead of being a Manor Haven family, can we put you here instead? And
Right, I just think right now, it's, again, those were all the active times.
Right.
My point is that we should be proactive.
But
But I agree, there's
I'm-
definitely different options.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand, like, what will we do with this report? I understand there's value in certain aspects.
We're gonna
of it.
file it.
Oh,
Right.
We're gonna be proactive, not reactive.
So the New York Liquid Asset Fund, I understand the T-bills aren't as liquid, but you also don't have broker's fees. So what are the broker's fees? Like how much money how is it determined? Is it determined by how much money you have in the fund? Your percentage in the fund? Is it determined, does everybody participate in the fund? Contribute to the same pool of brokers? How does that happen?
So what the agent is telling me is you're about 0.5 basis points lower in the custodial fees and agency fees. So it is shared among all of the people, well, not people, the municipalities that have their funds there.
Are we part of the town of North Hempstead municipality, or we are our own?
We're
we
a
get-
school district,
we're a
no,
school
our
district.
funds are separate, so,
So we get looked at just as Port Washington Union Free School District?
yeah, when you say looked at.
Well, in terms of how much we're responsible for paying on the broker's fees. Excuse me.
Yeah, it
Yes.
would be based on what we have there.
Okay, so what I'm trying to understand is, does each entity participating in the fund pay the same percentage of the broker's fee, no matter how much money they have in the fund or how much interest they derive? So for example.
So if we put $1
in-
million in and everyone else puts $100,000 in, do we pay more in brokerage fees, right, is what you're asking
Right,
versus
it's a
everyone
regular
else?
Percentage, yeah,
It's a percentage of what you have in.
yes,
Okay, and
it's like a normal bank.
does it have anything to do with what anybody else has going on?
Correct.
So you're not, quote unquote, polluted by what
But you can see it because they're advisors and they're advising the entire pool. So it's not like they're just advising us, so they can do it at a lower amount.
There's an economy of scale, but I
Yes.
didn't understand how it would impact us individually as a district. Okay, okay, Mr. Graham. What is an SJ joist? Did you say, I think at the beginning, unless I misheard?
It's a steel structural joist for buildings,
I heard
SJ.
correctly?
Mhm, yeah.
And what does it mean? What does it do?
It's something that SCD has indicated to the architects when doing the BCS, they want them to pay special attention to inspecting them, make sure that they're structurally sound. So each year, the scope of or each process, BCS process, the scope of that is identified by SCD, and they tell you to look for certain things, typically the building envelope, infrastructure, and this year, that was one of the things they highlighted that has been added for architects to check. It's just a structural beam that they want architects to get a look at. Sometimes we do have to make some openings to see, some of these things. They're inside a ceiling or they're inside a cavity that has to be opened up. So that's why they included that.
Okay, and I trust you know where they are, so.
Yeah, well, our architects and our engineers do, and our blueprints indicate that. Yep.
Okay. One of our school board members asked about steam rooms. We have new steam rooms in Manor Haven and Guggenheim. We have a steam room TBD in Sousa.
And Salem.
And
And Salem, every school is getting, every school per the bond got some sort of STEAM room, or the technology room is the room for the Schreiber High School. And, right, but they were getting some sort of, but the TBDs are Sousa and Salem.
And Daly's steam room is
In the new
progress.
addition.
In
In
progress.
In
progress, yep.
progress, okay. Thank you for that. And, the solar. So I had raised the issue of solar panels when I was a newbie in 2019. I know you weren't here. And it was in conjunction with all the new roof work, with the replacement work and the new roof work. And I asked the question, since we're replacing or putting new on, do we need to put a special type or certain type of replacement or new roof on in order to be able to do solar roofing? No.
No, solar now is floating. So back in the day, solar, they were much heavier, the technology has changed, and they had to be adhered to the roof through structure and infrastructure. That's not necessary anymore. The solar that they use now is floating. It just sits on top of the roof. It's ballasted to, make sure it can't move, but it's floating. It doesn't impact the roof at all, no matter what type of roof construction you use.
Great, so my question was then going to be, have we just shot ourselves in the foot by replacing or putting new roofing on that can't accommodate the solar panels? But what you're telling me is we're good.
Yeah.
We're okay, whatever we decide to do.
Yeah.
My final question, if we were to do, and I realize this is way down the road after Johnson Brothers comes in, I understand all that. But if we were to decide to do solar panels in some place like the Guggenheim Meadow, that would involve clearing out, you can't, because it's very treed from what I could see. Would that
I think there's a
involve-
big open air, but I mean, that's, a lot of
That's
moving
down the
pieces, a
road.
lot of decisions. But yeah, you obviously can't have solar under trees. You can have, vegetation around the solar, but, there's a big open area in the Guggenheim Meadow that would be applicable. The other property, I believe, has some open space as well.
I was just thinking beyond, that it was just a question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Is anyone else from the community? Oh, Holly, yes.
Question relating to the demographic report, is that something that typically is published to the stakeholders? Or is it just going to stay within the board?
Well, so guess what? I just, the 2014 report, I cannot speak to, I was not on the Board of Education, how
It was
Did we
presented,
publish?
it was not published. I wasn't on Board of Education in 2014, I was in the room, actually, I was, I think, HSA president at the time. So it was presented at a board meeting, and I think we would
We would
ultimately
also-
present it, but we should.
And I also am going to say that I just confirmed with Ms. O'Hara, we will be publishing the 2014 demographic report that we do currently have on today's agenda. Ruth, do you mind also incorporating that as well? So if people want to go back and reference it, and again, yes, we will make sure that the new one will also
I
be
think it's
published.
really helpful for when the budget vote comes out.
100%.
So you can see the increase in demographics. And then the second, I think it's fantastic that we're looking at green. For those of you who know me, we just went green and off the grid in our house. But one thing that hasn't been mentioned and maybe could be is the possibility of energy continuity plan with respect to the increased number of storms that we're having in Long Island and the possibility of looking at a battery backup for each one of those areas that has a solar installation so that there is more continuity. And rather than having to shut the school down when there's a storm because there's no power, we're creating like a Tesla farm or something for the schools to have that kind of continuity and surge protection.
We are doing surge protection. That's a project that's ongoing right now. And again, when we do bring in the ESCOs and we do go out with RFP, we would include all of that, generators, battery backup, all of that would be options that we would bring to the table.
Wonderful. Any other questions?
That's it.
Okay, well,
I have one question, it's kind of related, it's really for our administrator. So our steam rooms are almost done. What are we doing? No, I know, but do we have a comprehensive, curricular plan underway?
that's a great
That's
curriculum.
part of this.
Yes.
And we can kick that question to the curriculum committee, but that's the second piece, once they're built, how are we using them? We've done all this other curriculum mapping with the elementary curriculum.
Did we do that at the curriculum committee meeting? Talk
What?
about the esteem rooms and what the.
We just, in one of the rooms, we sat and we discussed, but as far as a whole
That was a
curricular
long
plan,
time ago.
I don't know that there was a whole curricular plan laid out, though, I'm
I
not
think
sure.
they're just in here, I think that's a question that we should give to the curriculum.
Is it steam rooms?
I thought so.
No, the PEP assessment is, but not the, and I don't know if this will come as part of the
I will
PEP
provide
assessment,
something that's
because
comprehensive in the board pack.
that's great. I think
I mean, I'm
this,
assuming that it's being used by the whole school in some way, but we don't have,
Why do every
do
time
we have a
we're talking
teacher,
about
will the PEP teachers be the person fully in control of the room? Or
Yes.
is it
yes,
somebody else, and how does it work with
We
everyone?
talked about it as part of PEP.
We
because
talked about-
talked about changing
Yes.
PEP to esteem.
Oh,
Yes.
long,
Right.
100%. So
I'm
before
sure
Dr.
that-
Hines is
we've
even
got your
here,
Westervelt.
right, yes.
Right,
Which is,
two assistant superintendents.
Right.
which is again why it's great for the curriculum committee, and also, I don't know if it falls under the
I think
PEP
it should go into
assessment
the
or
PEP assessment.
or where it comes up, but the point is, how are we using it curricularly?
Yeah,
Right, that's why we're using it.
Yep.
And even then, when we discussed it, which was at least 4 years ago, we didn't have a full answer for how they were going to be used.
We only
I mean, there are school districts that have a science teacher and a science curriculum in place. We don't have that here. So what's the
science
full use,
teachers and
you know, we
science
have these
curriculum.
beautiful ski
Wait,
rooms.
we have science curriculum, we just don't have dedicated science teachers
We have a
at the
science
elementary
curriculum
schools.
within the classroom, saying they're.
No, I think we have to follow a science curriculum, don't we?
do have to.
Yeah, of course we do. But I'm saying we now have a separate STEAM room that is beautifully outfitted with a lot of stuff in it.
Yeah.
How are we gonna be using it?
You said we don't have a science curriculum and science teachers, I was like, no, we do, just not at the
We
elementary.
don't have a dedicated science teacher
The
who has a
elementary.
science classroom
The elementary.
at the elementary level. We do have a science curriculum. It's different than if you have a science teacher with microscopes.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we,
All right.
just general statements.
So Dr. Hines, you're taking that ball and running with that.
Absolutely.
Fantastic, wonderful. So if that's the case, if no other questions or comments, is that correct? Meeting is adjourned, 10:17. Well done, everyone.
Thank you.
When is the next meeting?
The next, oh, I'm so sorry, Jess, the next meeting is,
December.
it's gonna be December 12th. We have canceled, unfortunately, due to scheduling conflicts, the November meeting. So we are combining the November topics into December, which we are going to be able to do. And then we have a January meeting as well after that, January 23rd.
Because I think I saw online, I don't know if it mentioned the December meeting. I don't know, I think it was skipped from.
No, what happened was you mean on the calendar or even on the
No,
board agenda?
on the documents that were uploaded to Board Doc.
Oh, well, this current agenda that was just posted for the budget and facilities meeting, it had November and it had January.
Right.
Because those were action items from our last meeting, we had to change the dates.
Okay.
Our December date still remains the same. So that's the reason only those two items were included.
Perfect.
Those dates. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Very
Mr.
efficient
Brown.
meeting.
Thank you for everyone.
Who's sending the camera? Somebody needs to press the stop button.
So typically does it because.
Does he?
He monitors.
Before you start your
Yeah.
meeting. Yes.
I also think when you also